Hi everyone, this is Anil. In this video, we will see Jira to ServiceNow integration using Google Sheets. Jira, Google Sheets, and ServiceNow. So there are three components in this integration. The first one is Jira, and here we have Google Sheets, and then we have ServiceNow. Now, to do this setup, first we have to configure filters in Jira. Let's say you want to have all the tasks for a given project, then that filters you set up in Jira. And you also will add columns that are required. So the two things you do, first is you add columns, and then you add the required filter conditions. So once that setup is done, the next thing is to do a setup in Google Sheets. So in Google Sheets, you have an extension called Jira extension. So we configure this extension. We set up uh, OAuth integration from this extension to Jira so that it can read Jira and then bring the required data. Now, when you configure this extension, you also have the ability to add which filter you want to read or which filter data you want to bring in. So that also will add. And then you also add the refresh rate, as in how frequently you want this data to be refreshed. Like for example, 1 hour or once a day and so on, right? One day. So this is the refresh rate. Next comes ServiceNow. Now, Google provides an API called Spreadsheet Api. So as part of this API, it gives you access to consume the data in the Google spreadsheets. Now, to consume this API, the two parts, one is authentication part. So we set up required, again, OAuth authentication. And next is we have to provide inputs to this API call. So we're going to use the get method to read the data, obviously. And then the inputs will be the spreadsheet ID, uh, and the ID of the tab, right? So a spreadsheet will have like two things. One is you have multiple tabs, and then each tab will have uh, like required rows and columns. So, so the spreadsheet itself will have an ID. It's called spreadsheet ID, and then each tab will have an ID for itself. So those two will become your input parameters and ID of the tab. Now, with these two inputs and with the required OAuth setup, we should be able to read data from a Google spreadsheet. Now coming to ServiceNow, we create a task table in ServiceNow because in Jira everything is a task, right? So you make a Jira task as a table, and the columns can come from the list of columns you have filtered, or you can add more columns if you want. But then the type is critical. Critical. We can have a type of field in this table, which will tell you what type of Jira task it is. For example, whether it is a epic or whether it is story or the bug and so on and so forth, right? So you can have the required type of the task. Now, once we understand like what is the spreadsheet ID, what is the ID of the tab to read the data, then in ServiceNow we can do a simple data source, and the type can be REST. Uh, so REST can be the type of the data source. So now we can set up a action in ServiceNow, which will do the work of reading data from Google Sheets using this API. And once this is done, then we can set up a simple transformation from here, like transform, and that can go to the target table, which is your Jira task, right? So it can go to this table. Again, depending on the refresh rate you have set up here, we can have the similar refresh rate here also. So you can have a flow or a scheduled flow or a scheduled import, one of the two, and then you can execute this at the same frequency as the filter refresh rate. So that way you are keeping ServiceNow up to date with Jira updates, right? So let's do a quick recap. So, so first we do is we configure filters in Jira. The purpose of filters is to do two things. One is bring required columns from Jira and then add the required conditions. So once that is done, the next thing is to set up a Jira extension in Google Sheets. So here you configure access to the Jira system. Uh, and then you also will consume the filter that you have given here. And then you also will set up a refresh rate, whether it is 1 hour or 1 day. Now, once you do that, you will start seeing tabs getting created depending on number of filters you want to read. And then this will have a spreadsheet ID and then also an ID field, the spreadsheet. Now, this information will be used to read the data from the spreadsheet. So Google offers an API called Spreadsheet API. To access this API, you will set up OAuth authentication again. And then here you're going to use a get method. You pass the spreadsheet ID and the ID fields as input. Once you do that, you should be able to read the data from the spreadsheet. Now in ServiceNow, you create a table called Jira task and you make a type field called type of task. So it can be epic, story, or bug, or any other task type you want to add into your list of tasks. And then we set up a schedule flow, uh, which will execute a data source. The data source will be of type REST. It will have an action, which will be a REST integration hub REST action. Or you can also set up your own, like a scripted uh, outbound REST API as well, and then use that through data source. Even that is fine, right? And once you do that, you transform that, and then you load this data into the Jira task table. And as I mentioned, the frequency of the schedule flow can sync with the frequency of the filter so that you keep the data in ServiceNow, which is Jira task, in sync with the data in Jira. This is how you do it. Thanks for watching. This is Anil. And this is my channel on YouTube if you want to follow.